What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is a series of unfortunate events, Season 2, Episode 1, The Austere Academy, Part 1. So, since this is kind of broken up in a way where each book has been split into two parts, I figured it would be easy for me to just sort of go through and make one review, Part 1 and Part 2 of a single book. So, yeah, we're stepping into this second season, and I did try to look over Season 1 of my reviews and stuff and see my thoughts. God, was my filming quality so bad back then. I mean, it's not improved that much, but at least the sound quality is a bit better coming through my tablet, and the video quality is definitely better. Oh, filming from a laptop was just not a good decision back then, but hey, it's what I had to do. But yeah, I mean, going into this, I do remember enjoying the first season for the most part. I remember there were certain things that were changed. There were some more modern day jokes. For instance, in this one, they have a reference to, I'll tell you what I want, what I really want. I don't know why. It's just sort of random and out of nowhere. But I do want to go back because I loved the books when I was growing up, but I haven't read them since I was a kid. Like, I was reading them in elementary and middle school. So I don't really remember as much about them as I'd want to going into this, because there are some things, speaking specifically about this episode, that I do kind of wonder, okay, was that from the book, or is that something they invented to make it even more miserable here? Because, I mean, I do remember things being miserable at the Austere Academy, at Proof Rock? I think it's Proof Rock. I do remember things being miserable. Like, I do remember them having to live in a shack, I'm pretty sure. And the crabs thing sounded familiar as well. Like, they had to get rid of them because they were all over the cabin, or the shack. But there are other things like tying up the kids' hands whenever they're late and making them eat like a dog. I can't remember if they did that in the book or not, but it sounds like it could be from the book. So honestly, I don't know where my book series is. They're probably somewhere around, packed up, because when I moved from one house to the other, I didn't unpack all of my books that I had. So they're probably sitting in some box somewhere, but I do kind of want to find them and just look over the books again and see how much the show did borrow from that and how much they changed for the sake of the show. The one thing that I do know is changed in the show is it feels like they're really tackling the mystery of what VFD is and what the parents were involved in and how Count Olaf was involved. We're seeing that obviously more outside of the Baudelaire's point of view, but it feels like we really are getting more answers here for what it is than we did in the books. I know they did give some hints here and there throughout. Obviously, I was too young to understand it at the time, so that's another reason I want to go back through, is like, okay, how much did he give us originally when he wrote these books? How much of the secret organization did we see? But yeah, I don't remember this guy Larry showing up and trying to give them this book. Like, I don't remember any of this. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. The first two things I want to talk about, though, are kind of a negative for me. First of all is the fast speaking. I feel like I remember a bit of this in the first episode, or the first season, but it feels like they're trying to get out a lot of information. And so some of the delivery is just, it's not quite right for me. Like, there are a lot of lines that felt like they were just delivered very dry and very quick because they're trying to get through a lot of information and a lot of story. So they talk really fast, and they talk with like no real emotion behind their voice, and they're just constantly talking like this. And oh yes, that's what I saw this the other day, and I saw this the other day, and let me tell you about this. It sounds more expositional than it does people having a conversation. In some ways, it is used as a bit of a gimmick. There are some conversations that are expositional, but they feel like they're supposed to be expositional. Like Larry, when he's talking to the secretary, whose name I forget, that feels expositional, but even the way that they like walk up to each other, you can kind of tell that's part of the joke. Like, oh, they're delivering information, like they're super serious spies. It's part of the joke, but whenever, like the Baudelaires and the Quagmires are talking and they're sharing information, I don't know, there are a few moments where it feels like they're showing some emotion, but there are some times when it just feels like, okay, you're just basically spouting information at each other. This doesn't feel like a real conversation that two people, or two groups of people that found each other at this awful place, would have. So that's a little bit of a problem. And then the other one, I know this is weird to say, but the really downtrodden tone, it really is kind of weighing on me. Maybe this isn't the right time for me to watch the show because of how dreary the world can be at the moment. But I don't know. It feels like the jokes weren't coming as often in this episode as I remember them in the first season. Like a lot of the humor in this show, there's a lot of dark humor, obviously. But it feels like even the dark humor jokes aren't really hitting as very often. It feels like they're more just focused on trying to show us how bad everything is for these kids. And I kind of want more humor thrown in there to kind of offset that a bit. Even if it's dark humor, that's fine. I love dark humor. Give me some dark humor. But just showing that things are really bad and making the vice principal super mean to them, that's not really dark humor. That's just you're feeling like you're pissed off at these people. Like Carmelita Spatz. I vaguely remember her from the books. I feel like I remember there being a student that was working with Count Olaf, and she was really annoying. I hope I'm right about that. I do love the fact that she's basically like a Shirley Temple knockoff. That's really funny to me. But even her, like, there are a couple moments where she throws in a good, funny line, but for the most part, she's just kind of annoying and rude, and that's just not funny, you know? And that's part of the problem, is that if you're gonna do something that's this dark and this dreary, you gotta throw in a bit more humor to really kind of keep me engaged. Because if not, then I'm just gonna be sitting here like, God, this sucks. Like, this really sucks. So I hope they can find a bit more of a balance for it, because it's just, maybe it was just this episode, or maybe, again, maybe just my mindset because of how the world is at the moment. Maybe I am in a place where I'm really picking up more on the dreary tones than I am the lighthearted and funny moments. But I guess on that same note, though, the other thing is some of the jokes just aren't as funny. Like the scene between Larry and Count Olaf in the kitchen just should have been more funny. It wasn't. Like, it felt like they thought it was going to be really, really funny. And honestly, it started off pretty well because Carmelita, delivering those lines at the end, and in steps Olaf, he's like, that was fine, but those last lines were mine. She's like, oh, let's go again. The whole from the flop or whatever she said, that wasn't funny, but just that feeling of, oh, she read his lines. That was pretty funny to me. But then everything after that, they're in a wrestling match with the lasagna pan, and then he pulls out the thing, and he's about to spray him, but then it doesn't work. So then they hold up the fists and hold up the fingers, and I'm just like, what is going on? And they do give some information in that, but it felt like it should have been funnier, and I don't think it's not because they're not trying. I just feel like the directing on the scene wasn't funny. It didn't really make me laugh. So those are the negatives, and they are kind of putting me on kind of a middle ground on whether or not I actually liked this first episode. I think, honestly, how I feel about the episode will really be shown by how part 2 goes, because I kind of see these as kind of a connected episode, like a big connected episode. So part 2 is better, then I'll probably find myself liking the whole Austere Academy episodes overall. But right now, I'm kind of stuck in I feel like it's not really hitting for me. It's not really getting me excited to see more this season. But I'm here to watch it. I'm here to see how it goes. So let's hope it gets better in part 2. We'll see you there. And now for part 2 of the Austere Academy. So it is still enjoyable so far. Like, I still am looking forward to seeing what else they're going to do. I will admit, I did actually look up just because I just wanted to see. I was really curious to see how much they use from the book. So I went online and just kind of looked up, some of the stuff about the Austere Academy, the actual book. And there surprisingly is a lot. Like, even, I didn't mention this, but the advanced computer, I remember thinking when they first brought that up, I'm like, well, that seems very weird and not from the book at all. And I looked it up, and apparently it is from the book, and I forgot about it. So they never talk about why it doesn't recognize him. Like, I guess that's just kind of the point, is like technology can't always be trusted, and maybe it's only searching for like the unibrow and the ankle tattoo, and so because it didn't see either of those, it's not recognizing him, maybe. One thing I will say is I did read in the synopsis of it, I did read that this is where Violet starts kind of like essentially saying to Klaus and Sunny, like, we just need to stop. We need to stop trying to get these people to see that it's Count Olaf, because they're not going to see. Because that, I will admit, like, they were doing it a few times in this episode, and I'm just like, you've already tried this multiple times, and every single time you try, it doesn't work. Why you keep trying? And so when I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, this is actually the point where they stop trying. Because I did remember at one point they did stop going through the motions of like, no, this is Count Olaf. Oh, that's not Count Olaf. He doesn't have the unibrow, and he doesn't have the ankle tattoo. At some point, they got tired of it. It turns out this is actually when it started. So hopefully they start doing it soon in the episodes here, because I will admit it is kind of becoming a little repetitive. But anyways, as far as this episode is concerned, it's perfectly fine. You know, we're still getting more. The Quagmires, I think they're a decent, you know, couple to have on the show as well. I know they don't really appear again for a little bit, because they get kidnapped at the end of this episode. So, but I thought, you know, they were a nice little injection for a little bit of, I guess, hope for the Baudelaires, because really this is a point where you would think, okay, things are just going extremely wrong. No, none of our relatives will take us. So now we're at boarding school, and then suddenly you meet these two kids that are in the same situation as you, and you find out you have some connections to them. And I did see that apparently they did mention VFD at the end of the book as well. So I really will have to. Ooh, excuse me. I really will have to go back and see like how much VFD is brought up, because I do remember them bringing it up throughout the series, but I don't remember it being in as much detail as we're seeing here. Like, they're really giving us a lot of information. So yeah, that's something I'm definitely curious about. But as far as, you know, the feeling of the show and the jokes and stuff, they're still kind of the same in this episode. Like, it still feels like there's a lot of things are awful, things are bad. And obviously you have the moment at the end where things finally come together for them. However, it still just feels like they're doing a lot of this stuff for the sake of, oh, this is just such an awful thing for the kids. Oh, these nothing ever goes right for them. Isn't it just so sad? Isn't it so awful? And yeah, there was a lot of that in the books too, but there was enough comedy and enough clever writing, I feel like. And I don't know, some of this just, I guess it is supposed to be more for kids, but still, like, some of the goofy antics that go on between the scenes, you know, like chasing Count Olaf down and grabbing his turban and spinning him around, and then they spend like a good 20 seconds on him stumbling into the shack and knocking it over. Like, stuff like that. It just, I feel like it takes up a little too much time, and maybe it's because this is supposed to be a show for kids, and I'm not going to get into that because I'm not a kid. But I don't know, I just want to see a bit more clever writing. The only thing that I will say definitely stood out to me over these two episodes, first of all, Lemony Snicket. I mean, it's Patrick Warburton, so of course it's going to be awesome. But also Jacques Snicket. I don't really remember hearing much about Jacques, you know, in the books and from. I think there was like a book about Lemony Snicket and his family and stuff. I don't really remember hearing about Jacques, but just a little bit I got from him in this episode, it was kind of fun and funny, and it just, I think the only thing that could have made it better, just because when he walked in, just the silhouette and the delivery, like, that would be awesome if it was played by Bruce Campbell. Because really, imagine Patrick Warburton and Bruce Campbell are now brothers. How epic would that be? But the guy that got to play Jacques is perfectly fine, and he is really good. He delivers the lines really well. And just that little scene with Carmelita, it wasn't extremely funny, but it was nice to see somebody kind of put her in her place for a second. But all in all, though, these first two episodes, they're fun, they're enjoyable for parts of it. There are a lot of scenes that for me don't work. I feel like the acting can be a little stilted at times because they're delivering so much information. The goofiness of it, I don't mind there being lighthearted scenes, but when you go into this goofy territory, it really doesn't connect very well with the rest of the show. So I don't know. I hope it gets better. I hope it improves because right now I'm kind of on a feeling of it's okay. Like it's fine. I do want to see more. I'm not completely turned off by it, but I also feel like it's not doing anything to keep my interest. It's not doing anything to making me go, "Oh, yes, that was so cool," or "That was really funny," or I don't know. Maybe it's because I haven't read the books in a while, and so I don't really remember the feeling of the books, but I just from what little I do remember, I just remember it being a nice, clever mashup of dark themes and good humor and clever writing, and I'm not really seeing that here. I'm seeing moments where it's really dark, and then moments where it's really goofy, a little clever writing sprinkled in here and there, and they don't really mesh well together. They're just like you can tell the difference between what's a scene from the book, what's a scene from the show, because of how they don't really mesh. So, but with all that being said, that's about it for these 2 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these first 2? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future series of unfortunate events reviews. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.